Hi, everyone. Welcome to my conversational series where I'm going to interview some of the professionals involved in the process of buying and selling homes so that, my goal is to bring you useful information so that you can make an informed decision when the time comes. And if you have any questions after this short video, you know where to find me. You can call me or text me at 408-705-3229 or email me at jdreamhomes@gmail.com. And today we have Scott Bayhouse, who's a loan officer at O2 Mortgage, joining us. Hi, Scott. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thank you. Thank you for joining us today. So you and I have been talking offline a little bit about the current situation and what kind of advice we can offer to people interested in buying a house. I mean, you the other day had really great insight, and I would like to see if you can share it with everyone today. So we work on a couple of questions. So let's start with a simple one,
Sure.
which is, does getting pre-approved still make sense during these COVID-19 times?
Yeah, I mean, the fact of the matter is that getting pre-approved, whether or not this COVID-19 or some kind of pandemic is going on or not, it still makes sense for a few reasons for most people, right? So depending on who you are, I'll give you an example. If you're a first-time home buyer and you're craving that information and that education, or even a move-up buyer, you've already bought once and you'd like to move up from your condo to your single family, or from a smaller house to a larger house, and you're unsure, what it's going to cost, what it would look like, can you qualify, how much can you qualify for? Well, these are all questions that can get answered when you meet up with a loan officer and submit all your paperwork, because sometimes things really do come down to just a few $100s a month of income, and the loan officer is going to be able to identify those things by meeting up with them sooner rather than later. So definitely. Now, if you're one of the very small percentage of buyers who is, you've got hundreds of thousands of dollars, you've got plenty of extra money, you make a ton of money every month, there's going to be, no questions, no problems, no issues with making that purchase. Well, then you're probably in that small percentage of people where, hey, getting pre-approved right now may not make the most sense. But that's not most people. So, regardless of whether things are going on right now, with regards to the pandemic, planning for the future is definitely something that makes the most sense.
Yeah, and you just made a really good point. And I remember again in our conversation, you talked about the phrase knowledge is power. So do you want to explain how does that benefit the future buyer?
Yeah, so again, understanding exactly what it takes to get the best loan program possible for you, to get the lowest rate possible for you and your family. That's really what it's all about, right? When you have the knowledge, you understand what it takes to get it done and get it done right. And then, of course, getting it done sooner rather than later gives you the time to plan and prep and get into place. I'll give you just one example of many potential examples. One example is I met with a couple weeks ago, and they didn't know that this little bit of extra debt they had was preventing them from getting $150,000 more in purchase price.
Mhm.
So they were looking at either 600,000 or 750 if they only got rid of their car payments, right? And it wasn't like they were a lot. It was just something that it's just the way the math works out. So that's just an example of knowledge is power. And one more example. Sometimes you have really good credit, but there's something on the credit report reporting on just one bureau that's preventing you from being able to get the loan, just because it's like a collection that needs to get paid, and maybe it wasn't your debt, and so there are a lot of little things that can come up, and you just don't know until you actually apply for getting pre-approved.
Yeah, totally. It makes total sense. So, what would be some of the steps that you would tell people it would be a good idea to start in order to go ahead and complete the process? And so that also they get some peace of mind? What would be some of the steps?
Well, step one is to reach out to a really good loan officer, somebody who's willing to spend the time and go through all the details. So that's number one. If you don't have that person, if you don't know a good loan officer, then reach out to your favorite real estate agent, Judith Ansberger. Reach out to your favorite realtor and ask them who their preferred contact would be. If you don't have that person, then just do some searching on like Yelp or some kind of review site for somebody. That's step one. And then two is talk with that person, talk with that professional, that loan officer, because everybody's situation is a little bit different. Some people are going to collect W-2s and pay stubs. Some people are just going to collect their tax returns and 1099s. It's going to vary depending on how you earn your income and what your scenario is. In general, W-2s, tax returns, pay stubs, and asset statements are going to be what a lender asks for or should be asking for if they're doing it right. They should be asking for those documents so they can definitely do all the same calculations that an underwriter will do. The underwriter is the ultimate decision maker. They're the ones who are really deciding if you're approved or not. Whereas the loan officer, they're just using their knowledge and their experience to do their own calculations on if they think you're going to get approved.
And on that note, I remember you talking about this concept of supercharging the pre-approval. Why don't you tell us about that? What does that mean?
So before I go into that, I want to actually ask you a question because it's going to help answer the question you just asked me. So as a real estate agent, when you're helping a seller sell the house, eventually you're going to get to the point where you entertain offers, right? Offers from buyers. And so what are the things that you look for as a listing agent? What do you coach your seller to look for in the offers?
That's a really good question. As a listing agent representing the seller, when we receive offers, of course, price is a very important point, but then the extra elements in the offer are the ones that make it a strong offer, a middle offer, or a weak offer. Some of those elements are the contingencies. And the contingency is one of them, and the one that gets to the point of today is the loan contingency. And what we look for is if we have a loan contingency, to make sure that the buyer is a strong buyer. The way to verify that the buyer is a strong buyer is to call the loan officer, in this case, Scott Bayhouse, and ask them two things. One, if they had time to receive all the documentation and the pre-approval is actually a full pre-approval. And two, how confident they feel about closing in time. Because sometimes if the pre-approval was done very quickly, only a few documents were provided, and then it takes a longer time to get to the final line. Does that make sense?
Well, yes, and not only can it take longer, but also it can just fail entirely. If the loan officer was rushed, they were told, hey, offers are due later today, offers are due tomorrow, I need you to crank out this pre-approval as fast as you can. Well, that loan officer might make some calculations in the income, errors in the income calculation, and or the amount of reserves that are required for that particular program. And there's all sorts of little things. If it's a retirement fund that's being used, well, only a certain percentage of that retirement fund can be used, and that percentage varies from program to program. So you can see where time can definitely influence the quality of the pre-approval, and that's why getting it done ahead of time and not rushing to the last minute can be crucial in making sure you have a good pre-approval.
Yes, and sorry to interrupt, to your point and to your question, one of the things that many times happens is that not the higher price is the winning offer. Sometimes the stronger offer is not the higher price, but it's the one that meets all the conditions and it's more favorable to the seller.
Exactly, which leads into the original question that you asked. How do you supercharge your pre-approval? And so let's just start with the typical process. First, we need to understand what a pre-approval is, and I touched upon it a little bit earlier. A pre-approval is just the loan officer, right? It's the salesperson who definitely wants that deal to go through. It's them examining the paperwork, your income documents, your reserves, your down payment, all that stuff, your credit. It's that person who is reviewing the paperwork, and they're deciding based on their experience that, yes, I think I can convince the actual decision maker to say yes to this, right? The actual decision maker is really the underwriter. So the whole trick is what if you could get your file in front of an underwriter, in front of the real decision maker, before you've even made an offer to buy somebody's house? You get that underwriter to actually say, yes, this loan is approved based on all the documentation you need to submit. And then they can also tell you exactly what they need. These are called conditions. Yes, it's approved pending verification of the following 4 or 5 or 6 or whatever conditions. And of course, then you go ahead and gather those conditions, and then you resubmit it to that underwriter. Then the underwriter will go through and clear those conditions. Now, at that point, you have what's known as a platinum approval, or what we here at O2 Mortgage call a platinum approval, or as I alluded to, a supercharged approval. Now, when you make an offer to the seller to buy their house, you can tell the seller, you say, hey, seller, look, I want to buy your house, and I don't need to wait for the real decision maker to say yes, because they already have. In effect, you're almost as good as a cash offer when you've supercharged your approval. And that's going to be a huge benefit. What you were talking about is it's not just about purchase price or the offer amount. It's about how solid is that pre-approval. And you can't get any more solid than a platinum approval.
That's fantastic. And yes, definitely, the more you can do ahead of time, the stronger are your possibilities of getting, the house that you're looking to buy. So Scott, again, thank you so much for joining me today. I know that the information you shared will be very, very valuable for the people considering buying a house. And everyone, if you want to get a hold of Scott, you can contact him at 408-398-1225 or email him at scott@o2mtg.com. And thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next session of the Conversational series. Stay safe, stay optimistic, and Scott, again, thank you so much.
Judith, it's been a pleasure. Thank you. And I look forward to being on at any point in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.